From the versatile slinging Sammy Ball to Joe Gibbs and his diverse dynasty to push the boundaries. These are the Redskins. Philly, where you need to be as tough as the fans to earn respect. Into courageous Cunningham run to the relentless pursuit of Reggie White. Like Dick Vermeil, these Eagles come to work. These are the Eagles.
The NFC playoffs come down to today. From Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, the Redskins Commanders take on the Eagles. These are the two hottest teams in all of football. 9-6 Philadelphia, winners of 4 in a row, and 9-6 Washington, winners of 5 in a row. And what should be a great game. Randall Cunningham, a 6'4" dual threat from UNLV, won the job in the preseason and hasn't looked back. 63% completions, 3,218 yards with 19 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. He beat out Ron Jaworski, Jalen Hurts, and the backup Donovan McNabb for the number 1 quarterback position, and he has been outstanding. He hands to a man who's earned a spot in the rotation at running back in Saquon Barkley. The Eagles join Barkley, McCoy, and Steve Van Buren at runner for this offense. Weaver at fullback, Retzlaff at tight end, and Tommy McDonald joins Mike Quick. For this critical Week 17 showdown, Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon, and Phil Nunziata in our studios for what should be a fantastic game for the NFC East. Screen pass to Van Buren, who picks up about 4. And as we check out the Washington defense, Hank, the Eagles have their hands full today with guys like London Fletcher, Chris Hamburger, Dale Green, Ken Houston, and safety LaRon Landry.
Yeah, it's going to be real tough for this team going against a bunch of Hall of Famers like that, including Hamburger, who happened to be Matthew McConaughey's favorite player, and that's why he became a fan of the Redskins, because he liked hamburgers.
Which is strange. Obviously a lifelong Texas fan, Chris Hamburger, by way of North Carolina, was a great linebacker up in Washington, nowhere near the Austin area for McConaughey. After the third down conversion, Cunningham gets rid of it down the field, and that is tipped away. Sean Taylor, who notably was a 2-time Pro Bowler at the safety position before getting shot by intruders in 2007. Devastating end to his career, but he was a fantastic safety. He joins Ken Houston as the 2 high for Washington. Check down to Weaver, who gets by Taylor, and there he goes. Shoved out by Houston. It's a 31-yard gain to the fullback.
Leonard Weaver is one of the best fullbacks in Eagles history, one of the last fullbacks in Eagles history before they brought him back this year, the fullback position. But going back to Sean Taylor, coincidentally, the Eagles were the last team that Sean Taylor ever played against, and it's very good for that family that his own brother, Gabe Davis, was signed by the Commanders as an undrafted free agent this year.
What an amazing story for Sean Taylor and the ties that he had. He's an incredible player at the University of Miami, and Washington gave him that shot in 2004, and he never looked back. After the throwaway from Randall Cunningham, the Eagles face 3rd down and 10 to go. Cunningham looks on a 3-step drop and fires to the end zone again, where that is nearly picked off at the goal line. Incomplete. Bailey had his hands on it.
Yeah, it was not a very good pass by Cunningham. There were 3 guys around the receiver, and, he might as well have just thrown that out of bounds.
52-yard field goal, and Akers hits it. Ironically, he's one of the 3 Eagles all-time players who also were a Washington Commander in his career. David Akers joining Donovan McNabb, who suited it up for Washington as well, and Zach Ertz, who played for the Commanders. Interesting ties between Akers and the like, and it is Akers that gives them the lead. Moss, the return for Washington. Dragged down by Bradley at the 20. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game. 8-time league leader in completion percentage, a 2-time NFL champion by way of TCU. Sammy Baugh, 20 touchdowns and 7 picks, 4th in the league in passing with over 3,600 yards. He is a fantastic player who's been picking it up as the season progresses. His Commanders, Redskins, have won 5 in a row. That pass from Baugh is incomplete. Let's check out the Washington offense, loaded with Hall of Fame talent, especially receiver. Art Monk, Charlie Taylor, and Gary Clark as well. Jerry Smith, the tight end. Mike Sellers joins the running back. MVP out of Kansas State, Larry Brown, as the offensive stars for the Redskins Commanders. 2nd down and 10 to go. Washington will go to the air off the play fake to Brown, and Baugh launches it incomplete. Let's check out that Philadelphia defense, ravaged with injuries. Asante Samuel is down for the season with a broken collarbone. Eric Allen, Chuck Bednarik, Reggie White, and Brian Dawkins, who missed most of the season too with a herniated disc, but he's back in there at safety. And Malcolm Jenkins is the other high safety on this 3rd down and 10. Baugh out of the gun, completes to Mitchell, who gets drilled by Bednarik, but he's got it for a 1st down.
That was the best pass of the day so far for Baugh. He's been a bit gun-shy throwing it over the receiver's head, but he found a good opportunity to find the guy over the middle with the slant.
A beautiful pass, and now Baugh's going even deeper down the field here, and Taylor's wide open. 68 yards for a touchdown.
That was easy money by Sammy Baugh. Again, a guy who's a jack of all trades. I believe he not only played quarterback, but a bunch of other positions as well. That was just a streak route that was just a blown coverage by the Eagles. It's an easy pitch and catch.
Yeah, slinging Sammy Baugh not only wreaked havoc at quarterback, but he retired in 1952 with the most interceptions by a player in NFL history with 31, an incredible two-way threat for Washington. He finds Taylor for the touchdown, and we go to Phil for a game update. Phil?
Thanks, guys. A quick check-in from the other NFC East matchup here. Cowboys-Giants. Roger Staubach back to pass for the Cowboys deep down the field, and it is hauled in by Drew Pearson. After a quick review, the officials say both feet down, Dallas strikes first here in the Meadowlands.
Thank you, Phil. Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon here from a beautiful but frigid Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as they may not be scoreboard watching live, but at some point they're hoping either the Cowboys lose, winner of this game would win the division if the Cowboys lose to those Giants, and Philly and Washington, if the Cowboys win, would need Green Bay to lose to make the playoffs as a wild card team. More on that throughout the course of today. Cunningham, one of the best dual threats in the league. 1st down, Philadelphia.
They didn't call him Running Randall for no reason. That's one of those situations where the Redskins/Commanders were playing man, and he found an opportunity to rush the ball up the middle.
Play action. Cunningham deep to McDonald, and he dropped it. Let's check out the scenarios in the NFC East. So there's a look at the division. Dallas, if they lose, set up Philly and Washington. The winner of this game would win the division. Hank, it all comes down to this.
Yeah, it's just one of those situations where the division seems to be very good, and they're all up at the top, and they're all bunched up, and they've all been playing well equally this season. You can't let anything go, and especially if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you still have to keep winning.
Cunningham on a deep drop. Fires to Quick, who makes a leaping catch, but that doesn't do much. It's a 3 and out. And you brought it up earlier. This is the only all-time roster division where every franchise has won a championship. Philadelphia's won 5 of them, and Washington likewise has won 5 of them. So the amount of talent and championship experience goes long and wide for these NFC East clubs. Mitchell returns to the 24.
Yeah, it's good that you say that and bring that up, but it's also because this division is insanely old. Like, every single one of these teams is at least up to 1960 had been a team. Obviously, the Cowboys were an expansion franchise in 1960, but the Giants were in like the early 20s, the Redskins / Commanders and the Eagles were the early 30s, and the Cardinals, who happened to be in the division as well originally, they're the oldest franchise in like the 1800s. So it also has a lot to do with how long they've been franchises.
Yeah, Washington and Philadelphia is the 6th longest rivalry in the National Football League, dating back, as you mentioned, to the 1930s. They've had some great regular season battles, Washington and Philadelphia, over the years. And to me, as this pass is tipped away by Brian Dawkins, the two that come to mind, Hank, is the body bag game in November of 1990, and 20 years later, Michael Vick shredded Washington in the Monday Night Massacre in 2010.
Yeah, obviously I wasn't alive, or I was alive in 1990, but I, watched the 2010 one, and that was amazing.
Thanks, guys. A quick check-in here in the Superdome. Panthers and Saints. Carolina's going to strike first right at the end of the first quarter. It's 3-0 for the Panthers. The Saints need this win and a Bucs loss to clinch the NFC South. Back to you guys.
Interesting game there. If the Saints come back to beat the Panthers, and then if Tampa Bay loses today at Atlanta, the Saints could come back from down 2 in the division to win the whole thing at 7-9. Really a fascinating development there. So, Hank, as we were talking about Washington and Philadelphia, some great games. You were barely alive for the body bag game where 9 players got hurt. And what was amazing is that Washington bounced back to beat them in the playoffs in what was one of the rivalries of the 80s and 90s. LeVar Arrington hurt for Washington here.
Yeah, and then when you go over to the Monday Night Massacre, that was a game where former Eagle Donovan McNabb, he was a Redskin at the time. The Eagles flipped him to the Redskins the previous season for a couple of picks, and he and the Redskins had beaten the Eagles early in the season. Michael Vick had gotten hurt with a rib injury, and the Redskins had given him a new, like an extension or something like that, and it was one of those situations where the game was like 35-7 by halftime, and it was obviously the Eagles dominated the game at the very beginning with the Vick to Deshaun Jackson deep touchdown, but it really was the end of Donovan McNabb with the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, so strange to see him in that uniform. Eagles wound up winning that game in 2010, 59-28. Which reminds me of the 2024 playoff game between these two, won by Philadelphia in a blowout, 55-23, Hank. What an incredible performance for them against rookie Jaden Daniels in Washington.
Yeah, he's a really good quarterback, and he has a really, really good future ahead of him. I think that was one of those situations where they were a little bit too high off their win against Detroit, which I obviously thank the Commanders for beating Detroit. But, the Eagles defense and the peanut punch met the young Commanders and just dominated them.
Close game here from Philly. It's Washington who leads by 4. Welcome back. Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon, and Phil Nunziata in our studios in what should be a fantastic game. The NFC playoffs come down to Week 17. Washington and Philadelphia meet in a critical playoff potential game in the NFC East. Really, for Philadelphia, it's amazing they've reached this point. The team that was 5-6 going into their game at Seattle in Week 13, they looked absolutely done, and they have run the table. And we were here a week ago in Arlington, Hank, when they defeated the Cowboys, who had all sorts of playoff scenarios to play for, and what was an incredible performance. And a guy that shined in that game is the man who's gone for a 69-yard touchdown. Mini Maverick Tommy McDonald gives the Eagles the lead. Touchdown.
What a burst of speed that he has. Going on that go route, Randall finds him along the sideline, and it seems like he's going to be caught from behind, and he just turns on the jet.
And Mr. Touchdown, the man who scored the second most when he retired in NFL history, is in for another long touchdown to put the Eagles in front 10-7. 10th touchdown catch of the year from McDonald. Phil Nunziata with a game update.
Thanks, guys. 49ers and the Rams. Niners up 10 before Kurt Warner uncorks one here deep down the field, 80 yards to number 80. Isaac Bruce in the end zone for the longest touchdown catch of the season. 49ers still up 3, but the Rams are right on their tail. Back to you guys in Philly.
The winner of that San Francisco-St. Louis-LA game wins the NFC West and potentially the number 1 seed in all the NFC. And Hank, this Philadelphia-Washington game, there's nothing special here. Of the 8 divisions for the all-time rosters franchise, 7 are up for grabs this week, including the NFC East. What a crazy year it's been in this league. Ball hit by Slay, and his pass to Gary Clark is incomplete.
You missed the kick returner. Brian Mitchell played for both teams as well, Eagles and Redskins. Redskins in the 90s, Eagles in the early 2000s.
Your depth of knowledge for these clubs go way back. I even thought about Art Monk, who suited up for the Eagles, but not Mitchell. And really, it's incredible, Hank. But if there's anyone to bring in for this game, knowing the rivalry, it is you, who's been around a long time. Art Monk with the catch and run, a gain of 30 on the play.
In fact, Brian Mitchell played quarterback, the number 3 or number 4 quarterback in that body bag game, because no one else could suit up to play quarterback.
What an incredible game that was. You know, Joe Gibbs talked about that being the nightmare of all nightmares, and they miraculously came back to win the Super Bowl as one of the greatest teams of all time a year later after that game with injuries.
Yeah, it just goes to show how great of a coach he was, and, you know, the amount that they had to just dig deep in order to forget moments like that.
Joe Gibbs, greatest coach in Washington history. Eric Allen with nearly a pick six. And a third down is coming up. Washington this season is 10th in the league at 41% on third downs. They need the 34 on 3rd and 7. The pass is complete to Clark, who gets leveled at the 30. First down, Washington.
But you know what? He found a target for his quarterback in the middle. Everyone else was covered up. Clutch throw and catch for a first down.
One of the greatest receivers of the Joe Gibbs era, 4-time Pro Bowler out of James Madison. John Riggins, a great runner out of the Joe Gibbs era. He runs over number 23, Troy Vincent, who's down on the play.
That's a big loss, as he's one of the best cornerbacks in Eagles history. Obviously, he's in this game.
5-time Pro Bowler out of Wisconsin and an All-Pro. Spin from Taylor. It's 1st and goal as Jenkins shoves him out. This Eagles defensive secondary is ravaged with injuries. There is Darius Slay getting lost out there, Sheldon Brown. By all-time standards, Eagles are running out of guys out there, and Washington starting to take advantage. It is now 1st and goal at the Philadelphia 6. They'll go run with Larry Brown buried to the backfield.
Yeah, it just seems like a blown coverage. They're playing zone out there, and they just let a guy go by them. Obviously, you can't change that once you're playing man or zone.
Toss to John Riggins, and he is in for the touchdown.
John Riggins is a bowling ball there. You toss the outside to him. No one else can track him or has enough speed to track him, and he just finds his way to the end zone.
His 24 rushing touchdowns in 1983 is still the 5th most in a season in NFL history. An absolutely devastating runner in the open field. And he is in for his first touchdown of the year, nicknamed the Diesel. And Riggo, 6'2", 230. I'd say even though he's listed at 230, he probably played at more like 245. I mean, he wreaked havoc during the 80s for Washington.
He's essentially a tight end who's playing running back, and that's very hard for a linebacker or even a safety to cover.
Eagles have been beating opponents with the run by more of a platoon of tailbacks, not quite the size of Riggins, but very productive, led by Steve Van Buren, backup LaShawn McCoy, and third stringer Saquon Barkley. Wilbert Montgomery and Brian Westbrook are numbers 4 and 5 at tailback in this offense. D'Angelo Hall with the tackle for loss.
Eagles definitely known for the running backs. You know, it's a long history with this team of having success at the position, having guys who can match up well too.
Randall Cunningham may as well be a running back too, but he is short of the marker. Phil with a game update.
Another check-in at the Meadowlands, Cowboys and Giants. Cowboys up 13. Y.A. Tittle drops back for the Giants, and he finds Victor Cruz on the near sideline, and it's a salsa dance in the end zone. Giants down just 6 here in the second quarter.
Winner of this game wins the division if the Giants come back to beat Dallas. It's a 6-point game as the Salsa Man is in for the touchdown, Victor Cruz. Sammy Ball with Washington leading by 4. He throws it away. An interception from Allen, and he's got a nose for the end zone. It's another defensive touchdown, his 3rd pick 6 of the year.
Who else but Eric Allen, the guy who pretty much every time he gets an interception, he scores a touchdown. What was it, in 1994, he had like 6 interceptions and 4 of them went for touchdowns. That's just remarkable.
Yeah, Eric Allen, a Hall of Famer, with those 4 in 93, finished with a half dozen in his career. I mean, it's one thing to read a quarterback's eyes for the interception, but you've got to be an incredible athlete to be able to return it like the way he did during his illustrious career. Inducted in 2024 into the Hall of Fame, 5-time Pro Bowler out of Arizona State. Slinging Sammy Baugh, just his 8th interception thrown all year, and it's a big one as Philadelphia's in front. Washington's Joe Gibbs calls timeout as he tries to give this offense an opportunity here to score before the end of the half. Screen to Brown. Eagles are all over it. It's a 4-yard loss going into the 2-minute warning.
Loss of 4 on the play.
Yeah, that's a situation where it's a good call, the screen, with the fact that the Eagles have a good pass rush, but it was just read entirely by the D end, and they broke that up.
Timeout, Andy Reid, as the Eagles devastate Larry Brown of Washington on that drive. Philadelphia is led by one of the greatest linebackers of all time who delivered the hit there. His 100th tackle of a Pro Bowl season, Hall of Famer from Penn, Concrete Charlie, 8-time Pro Bowler Chuck Bednarik. Deep kick from Tress Way. Westbrook on a hop at the 36. A return of 9. The tackle from number 99, linebacker Andre Carter.
Now, here's the big problem with that situation. The Redskins/Commanders give the Eagles way too much time here.
We saw Cunningham take advantage of less time to win the game late against Dallas. Incomplete, the tip from Ken Houston.
The intended receiver on the play.
And if he keeps throwing too many incompletions, he'll give the Washington Redskins/Commanders too much time.
Ken Houston, his 13th deflection, what has been a very productive year. Cunningham is sacked, and Washington will call timeout. Well, the worst nightmare, like you talked about, Hank, may be coming true. They'll line up in a running formation. The back is Saquon Barkley, who gets buried. Monty Coleman the stop.
Yeah, that's a drive where you didn't do too much, even though you had the ball in really good field position.
Donnie, Bag of Bones Jones. An average of 47 yards a punt. What's been a brilliant season. Sends it deep to Mitchell. And he sheds 1 tackle and is spun down at the 28. Slinging Sammy Baugh retired as the NFL's all-time leading passer. When you think about the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game, he is on the very short list. Top 5, maybe at most top 8 all time. Ball completes it to Taylor, but he's out of bounds. Because he played largely in the 40s, people overestimate him, but his numbers, he basically was the league's best at every passing category for about a decade. Really amazing, Sammy Baugh, and what he was able to do in the pre-Super Bowl era. His pass is incomplete.
Wasn't he one of the first quarterbacks to throw 7 touchdowns in a game? It was like something like 7 touchdowns and 1 interception.
He probably did that on 7 passes. That's about how much they threw back then. Ball on 3rd down, hit by White, complete to Mitchell, short of the marker, timeout, Eagles.
Philadelphia stops the clock.
Yeah, it's the Redskins/Commanders. You got to trust Way, pin them deep, and try to make sure that you get to halftime.
Tress Way, one of the greatest punt average punters in NFL history. His average is 10th best all time. Tress Way out of Oklahoma. A great punt and a return of 5 from Westbrook. For those of you just joining us, it's been a riveting back and forth game between bitter division foes, Washington and Philadelphia. Cunningham has torn up the Washington defense with 2 touchdown passes. And going into the break, a timeout called here. Our score is 17-14. Sammy Baugh has thrown for 155 yards and a touchdown himself on a deep ball early in the game to Charlie Taylor. End of the first half. Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon, Phil Nunziata. It's a great game so far from the Lincoln, Philadelphia. It's the Eagles up by 3 at the half. Second half coming up next. Back at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. Eagles lead the game by 3, but Washington leads in every major statistical category in this first half.
Yeah, it's all about the fact that the Washington Redskins/Commanders have been doing great offensively in terms of yardage, but that pick 6 is the one thing that kills everything for the Redskins.
Before we get going with the second half, Phil Nunziata has a game update.
It's getting exciting here in hot Atlanta. The Falcons taking on the Buccaneers. Michael Vick drops back to pass. Flick of the wrist deep down the field to Julio Jones, and he will not be caught right before halftime. Atlanta going up by 2 touchdowns here on their division rival.
Longtime great Philadelphia Eagle Michael Vick with a hat trick in the first half. What an incredible performance from him. Tampa Bay with a chance to seal up that division is getting routed right now against Atlanta. Crazy game underway in Atlanta. Sammy Baugh buried in the backfield for a loss of 2. That's number 99, Jerome Brown.
The big man, if only he had stayed around longer with us, he probably would have turned into a perennial All-Pro and Hall of Famer and all that great stuff.
Absolutely. 1992, after an All-Pro campaign and one of the best pass rushers of his era, he joins Reggie White on that defensive line, Fletcher Cox in the middle as well, and a devastating front 4. Check down to Charlie Taylor, who's been great today, but he is hurt after the big hit from Sheldon Brown. It's a first down for Washington.
That's a shame for them because it was all him on that deep touchdown pass earlier in the game.
Baugh gets rid of it out of bounds. Washington's receiving core is scary, led by Scary Terry McLaurin, but they've got a Hall of Fame trio: Charlie Taylor, Bobby Mitchell, and Art Monk, Gary Clark, Santana Moss, tight ends Jerry Smith, Chris Cooley, and Bill Anderson. This receiving core is outstanding in Washington.
Yeah, it's a lot of big names on that group, a lot of guys who can definitely get open and who can score from long distances. This is definitely a scary bunch to defend against.
Blitz from Brown, and he got there just in time for the sack.
That was a blitz that Sheldon Brown ran his whole career, that slot cornerback blitz of the Jim Johnson years. scared and absolutely horrified quarterbacks from 2002 all the way until 2008.
Westbrook, one of the better return men of that 2000s era. Brings it back for 8 on the play. We're early in the third. All-time Eagles have been controlled not only in the stat sheet but also on the clock. And they still managed to have a 17-14 lead. Saquon Barkley has struggled too, and he's out of the game. The 2024 Offensive Player of the Year with 5 carries for 0 yards. And he appears to have sustained a chest injury on the Brian Orakpo tackle. Good news, though, for the Eagles. Steve Van Buren's not a bad guy to take his spot at running back. Cunningham guns it down the field for Pete Pihos, who's wide open. First down, Philadelphia, as he does make the catch in bounds.
That was a great sideline catch by Pihos. Caught the Redskins / Commanders in the zone, tiptoed out of bounds. Just a clutch catch.
Eagles may not have the top-end receiver talent of Washington like Art Monk, who's top 15 all-time in receiving yards, but they've got a platoon of receivers as well, including 3 Hall of Famers out there, Harold Carmichael, Minnie Maverick, Tommy McDonald, and the Hall of Famer out of Indiana in Pete Pihos out of the 40s and 50s. Van Buren buried at the 21. There's a look at Cunningham's numbers today.
1 yard gain on the play.
Yeah, and who knows what they'll have in the future. The biggest thing threatening the Eagles is the fact that a lot of their receivers are from a bygone era, but that doesn't mean that they can't be successful, like we've seen with Tommy McDonald.
Champ Bailey, longtime great Bronco, played with Washington of the 90s and early 2000s, in on the sack. Blitz, and they got there just in time. Van Buren would have been off and running still had Cunningham got rid of it sooner. Incomplete. And now Akers is on for the long field goal, and he has been brilliant all season. 27 of 28 on the year, and he drills another one for Philadelphia, who lead the game by 6. Phil Nunziata with a game update from New York. Phil, what do you have for us?
Thanks, guys. Back in the Meadowlands, the Giants are trying to keep pace with the Cowboys. Wyatt Tittle going deep down the field for a huge first down connection, but the ball is fumbled, picked up by Woodson, and he's going to have a pretty nice return on this fumble recovery all the way down to the 45. They tack on another field goal, 19-7, Dallas.
So Wyatt Tittle was, in fact, taken over for the struggling Eli Manning, and Tittle's been playing well, but the Giants are down to the scoreboard here in a winner for the division in both New York and also in Philadelphia. It all comes down to this. We'll give you game updates throughout the second half. Winner of this game is hoping either the Giants lose for the division or the Packers lose for a wild card spot. In cut to Art Monk for the gain of 10.
Number 81.
That's a brilliant job by Sammy Baugh, just handling the pass rush, finding Art Monk over the middle, getting close to the first down marker.
Riggins downhill to the 30, and he's got a first down to the 32. Riggins is only averaging 4 yards a carry this year, Hank, but I think every defender in his way remembers those 4 yards he gains every time he totes the football. He is out. Clinton Portis is in at running back as ball goes deep, and he's picked off by big play Darius Slay. Wrapped up by Taylor at the 46.
Number 3.
That was just a really, really bad pass. You got to try to matriculate the ball down the field. That he was in triple coverage, and Darius Slay just came up with a huge jump and bagging up the ball.
Longtime great Lion and Eagle with his first pick of this season for Philadelphia. Van Buren sheds a tackle and gains 7.
I was going to say maybe they should have used John Riggins more, but that's obviously in the past.
Yeah, the Eagles with that depleted secondary. Only Houston has fewer takeaways as a defense than the Eagles this year, and Darius Slay steps in a big way. The Eagles may not have many guys like Brian Dawkins, Weapon X, but they've got a lot of decent cornerbacks, and Slay is one of them, picked up by the Eagles in 2020 and helped them win the Super Bowl against the Chiefs 4 years later. Pihos with the gain of 6.
The strange thing about Darius Slay that I'll always remember is the fact that he was the best cornerback on the team, and a lot of people complained about him when he played, but when he didn't play, it wasn't a very good situation for the defense. And, they always had to dig deep if he didn't play so that they could try to shut down the best receiver on the opposing team.
Potentially the final play of the third quarter here, and it is a Randall Cunningham run, and he's got a first down for Philadelphia, closing in on 500 rushing yards this season, and his Eagles are 8 minutes away from a big division win. Philadelphia by 6 at the end of 3. Welcome back to Lincoln Financial Field, a frigid 33 degrees from Philadelphia. All-time Eagles a chance to win their 5th in a row and set up a potential playoff opportunity with a win today. Hamburger for the loss of 3, maybe 4 on the play.
The Washington Commanders / Redskins have been doing such a great job stopping the Eagles' rushing game. They don't have the greatest running backs in the world, but they don't have super bad ones. But they've been doing the job to contain running Randall Cunningham and the pack of receivers the Eagles have.
LaShawn McCoy, haven't heard much of him today. He is the deep back, all-time Eagles rushing leader, playing with Philly for 6 seasons in the 2010s. Hammered on the gain of 5. Akers with a chip shot. 3rd field goal try of the ball game from Akers. Hall of Fame all-decade teamer, the 2000s, fabulous kicker for the Eagles. And he hits another one. It's Philadelphia 23, Washington 14. Phil with a game update.
Cold, rainy one here in Lambeau as the Packers take on the Lions 3-3 in the third quarter. Brett Favre going deep down the field to Sterling Sharp, gets behind the defense, and he will get in the end zone, putting the Packers up 7, and a nice Lambeau leap there for Sterling Sharp as they look to put this one away against their rivals.
So Washington and Philadelphia are hoping that either the Cowboys lose or the Packers lose, and right now they're both winning. Really a devastating development. Phil Nunziata will give you updates throughout the fourth quarter, what should be a fascinating week for the all-time rosters franchise. Nick Rice, Hank Cinnamon, Phil Nunziata, 6:14 left. Philadelphia has outscored Washington 13-0 since the Redskins Commanders took the lead late in the first half with Taylor. And after the short run, ball's back on the no huddle, and he's going down again by Brown.
There's another Sheldon Brown blitz right there. I was going to say, if you are one of these teams that wins this game and the Cowboys or the Packers obviously win and you miss the playoffs, you are truly the biggest loser because you get a lower draft pick than the team that actually loses this game.
Just a lose-lose if all that happens. Mitchell with the first down, converting 3rd and long. With a bit over 5 minutes left in the game, slinging Sammy Baugh, great in the clutch, has a chance to pull him back in. Hit by Reggie White. He is 3rd in the league with 15 sacks this season and nearly had another one there of Sammy Baugh. He beat Joe Jacoby, the all-time right tackle for Washington, and nearly brought him down. Ball goes deep. A wide-open Taylor's loose again. 64 yards for the touchdown.
Yeah, that speed is just a killer. And I will say that Darius Slay is a good cornerback, possibly a great cornerback, but you can't lose off the shove at the very beginning. You can't let him get by you if you're bumping him.
And he certainly way overplayed that, did Darius Slay. And Charlie Taylor's been a man on a mission. That catch gives him over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns this year, his second today. Phil Nunziata with another game update.
Another check-in this Rams-Niners game. It's been all Niners since the last check-in. Kurt Warner trying to keep pace against San Francisco. Has plenty of time, goes deep down the field. He's got Isaac Bruce in the end zone for the second time today. Just trying to keep pace. Back to you guys.
Winner of that game is either the 1 or the 2 seed. The loser is the 5 or the 6. And obviously the winner is division champs. San Francisco and St. Louis, LA. Niners in control, but Isaac Bruce and Kurt Warner making things interesting, as is Sammy Baugh and Charlie Taylor. You know, that combination's been, if the Eagles can stop that, this game is over. But Washington's been pulling back in, led by their star quarterback. Gain of 3, and Cunningham's not had bad numbers today, but not quite the impact we're used to seeing out of Randall Cunningham.
Yeah, and it all has to do with the fact that the Redskins/Commanders defense has been stopping the run, and if you stop the run, it's very difficult. I mean, unless you're Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl, it's really difficult to be able to have any sort of balance on your team if you can't run the ball.
Fabulous defensive performance today from Washington, down Darrell Green for the season. Andre Carter brings him down, and it's a 3-and-out. And Donnie Jones is in for his 3rd punt of the day. Philadelphia with just 5 first downs for the game, and none on that drive.
That just goes to show how well they've done on the turnovers, but they have not really been able to score touchdowns in a consistent fashion when they're starting in their own territory. They're mostly kicking field goals.
1st and 10. Inside run to Larry Brown, who won the MVP award back in 1972. Best running back in franchise history. John Riggins, Cliff Battles, Clinton Portis, and fullback Mike Sellers round out the running back room for the team out of the nation's capital. Baugh's hit as he throws, and that's incomplete.
If we rewind back to the last drive, it was a huge pass by Baugh to, I believe, Brian Mitchell to the sidelines, which extended the drive and gave the Washington Commanders/Redskins a new set of downs.
Hall of Fame left tackle Russ Grimm commits the team's first penalty of the game. Just their 12th of what has been a very efficient and clean season for them. On 3rd down, Baugh's throws incomplete to Taylor. We've got a game update. Here's Phil Nunziata.
Another check-in here at Lambeau Field. Still cold, still rainy. The Packers still on top 10-3. Brett Favre under center drops back. A quick slant to Lofton, and that's going to add to their lead. Packers 17, Lions 3, with only 4 minutes left in this game.
Thanks, Phil. Unless Detroit in 4.5 minutes erases a 2-touchdown deficit, the only opportunity the winner of this game has to make the playoffs is the division crown. Cowboys win the division with a victory over the Giants. We'll give you an update on that game as well later in the 4th quarter. Westbrook returns to the 26. The playoffs are in full swing, Hank Cinnamon, and it all comes down to the final few minutes of the final week of the entire season. What a crazy year it's been to the all-time roster franchise. Timeout, Joe Gibbs.
With the carry on the play. Gain of 5.
This is a strange situation to be in for a team because you're up by 2 points. You need to milk the clock, and you need to run the ball. So it's really big for the Redskins/Commanders to be able to stop the run, but also be able to conserve their timeouts and make sure that the Eagles are not getting too close to the 1st down marker.
Barkley, averaging 3.5 yards a carry this season, has been completely shut down, and he's buried again going into the 2-minute warning. So it all comes down to this. Philadelphia, who for the game has a total of 45 rushing yards. They need 11, or else they'll give the ball back to Baugh in Washington. And McCoy is denied. Washington will have it back right after this from Phil Nunziata.
What will most likely be the last check-in here for the Meadowlands. Cowboys up 19-7 as Emmitt Smith punches this one in for his first touchdown of the day, putting the Cowboys up 26-7 just before the 2-minute warning.
Welcome back to Philadelphia. None of these players know this, but there's nothing to play for here unless somehow the Cowboys, I guess, throw the ball out of the end zone or something. It appears if the Packers and the Cowboys hang on, the season is over for both Philly and Washington, which is really a devastation considering Washington had won 5 in a row, and Philadelphia had won 4 in a row. In December, they did everything they needed, and it still wasn't enough. Baugh sacked again. That is the 4th of the game from this defense, the first from 2-time Pro Bowler Jerome Brown.
That's sometimes how the cookie crumbles. You know, if you don't take care of business early in the season and you have struggles, like both of these teams probably had struggles, didn't win enough games, you know, didn't beat this one team, you know, you're playing from behind and you need to gain more in order to get to the playoffs. You know, sometimes these are things that happen, and I guess that's one of the reasons why the NFL expanded to 7 playoff teams per conference.
Yeah, to fit a team like this. Baugh on 4th down keeps the comeback hopes alive with a completion to Mitchell. 285 yards. You look at the numbers, it's amazing. Baugh and Washington is down until you think of the Darius Slay interception to the second half and the brutal interception to Eric Allen late in the first half. Here's that 4th down conversion again.
Yeah, it means over the middle, Brian Mitchell setting his team up, and they've got a Hall of Fame kicker, so if they can get into good position, they can rattle off a field goal to try to win this game.
Baugh completes the pass to a talented tight end out of the 2000s, 2-time Pro Bowler out of Utah State. Him and Jerry Smith, top 2 on the all-time receiving list by a tight end in Washington history in Chris Cooley. That pass is incomplete, and another 4th down's coming up.
I think the biggest issue by Washington was burning those at least one of those timeouts too early, just because they don't have as many here, but let's see what happens.
Baugh deep to Monk, and he's got it for a 1st down, and they'll clock it here. 8 seconds, 7 seconds, and Baugh spikes it with 5 seconds to go. This may be too long for a field goal, but first, here's the 4th down to Monk.
Yeah, another 4th down conversion, and it looks like they're going for it. I think this is the smart decision. I don't know what Mosley's field goal range is.
His longest this year is only 45. They haven't tested his deep leg. Here's the deep arm of Baugh, and it's incomplete. Santana Moss dropped it. Here's a look at that play again.
Yeah, I mean, you're just going for the last second play. Obviously, Sammy Baugh isn't the new quarterback for the Commanders, who would have completed that pass, Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, Santana Moss, a capable receiver, couldn't quite hang on. Well, the winner of this game's got to be thrilled until they look at the scoreboard. Philadelphia has been eliminated from the playoffs despite their 5th win in a row. Hank, as we sign off on this season, if you were to encapsulate the franchise to one player, who would that player be?
In this season, that player would have to be Reggie White, the Minister of Defense, who, like you said, had 15 or 16 sacks leading the DSFL season this year. So I would say the answer is Reggie White.